Welcome to I Heart Geek.
Should I put this speck down? Horton thought with alarm. If I do, these small persons may come to great harm. I can't put it down, and I won't. After all, a person's a person, no matter how small.
And welcome to I Heart Geek, the Suessiverse edition. Can I coin that word?
Oh, the things
Suessiverse? I'm pretty sure someone's already used
You
the term
can't.
Suessiverse.
You can't, and you won't. We will not have it on a mat. We will not have it with a bat.
I will not eat it out of a hat.
This episode's going to be a lot of that.
Yep.
It's gonna be like a Monty Python episode, only more so.
Oh, the things we've thunk this episode.
I have been looking forward to this episode for a while. We're talking about all things Dr. Seuss. Yeah, there's a lot of history behind Dr. Seuss.
Yes, there is.
But let's introduce the panel first. I'm Dub, and I will eat my green eggs and ham.
I'm Miss Geeky Page, and I do not like the cat in the hat. He's scary.
I'm Blythe. I'm the tech guy, and I like red fish and blue fish.
One fish, two fish?
I am Sean, and my beard is yellow and purple striped.
It really is, folks. You're missing it.
Yep.
Actually, can I ask this before we go into it? What is with the 90s funk bands and rave culture that had so much Dr. Seuss stuff?
Because I think that's what that kind of culture is about, is being bright and over the top, and that's what Dr. Seuss is it's a lot of crazy, extravagant colors and just overall like aesthetic, like everything, almost everything in the Dr. Seuss book, when you look at it, it's more than just bright and colorful. It's like fluffy and feathery and all that kind of stuff. And I think that's where that comes from, is they were able to take that into that culture.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I mean, even just the way that it's so recognizable with the stripes and just anytime you see Seuss inspired stuff, it is.
You know what you're looking at.
Always.
They have such interesting colors, like the mighty Galoo for the spotted trunkle, and other mystical beasts, like Blythe's uncle.
Yes!
I'll see myself out.
Bravo.
He did it.
Bra freaking vo.
Oh, I'm so happy right now.
Oh, that was so good.
But yeah, Dr. Seuss really built his own universe. Like you said, when you look at something that is from Dr. Seuss, you know exactly what it is. He didn't just write stories, he built an entire world and universe.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there is an aesthetic, like, this goes back to when we were talking about, like, the Tim Burton verse, right? That aesthetic is his. There's no question when you see it that you are now in this Seussical universe.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what does everybody remember your first memory of Dr. Seuss? Because, I mean, no matter what, when you knew how to read when you could finally read Dr. Seuss. And that's honestly that's one of the reasons why I learned how to read, because I'm like, I couldn't get my parents to read it because they just weren't any fun at reading that kind of stuff. But I understood it, and I saw the pictures, and I'm like, this is really cool. And that's why I wanted to learn how to read, and that was Cat in the Hat. I'm like, what is the deal with this freaky cat? Is he the good guy? Is he the bad guy? He's kind of creepy, but he's kind of cool. I don't know what's going on. And that's part of why I learned how to read. So that's my first memory with Dr. Seuss. What about y'all?
The Grinch That Stole Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
The cartoon.
Dahoo-dore.
Because we were allowed to stay up a little bit past our bedtime, because it was usually on like at 8, and we had to go to
8
bed
o'clock
by 8.
CBS. Yep.
Yeah, we had to go to bed at 8 when we were kids, but I remember my mom letting us stay up to watch it.
Nice.
Remember the Grinch.
Yeah, I think my first book memory is the red fish, blue fish book. But I think my strongest first memory of it is How the Grinch Stole Christmas in that movie.
Mine is Fox and Socks. One of his B-list books, I suppose.
That's an interesting take for a first
my
one.
oldest niece's
it's
favorite.
just it's just
loves
that was the one that I remember being read to me as a child and turning those pages and looking at it and thinking it was so cool. And the one that, of course, had the most impact on me is the Lorax. But the one that I remember first is Fox and Socks.
Yeah, I know the Lorax, and we'll get into
I love the Lorax.
that a lot later. That one never really... I know that had the most quote-unquote message to it,
Yeah.
but that one really, as a kid, it never did it for me. I don't know why. I felt like it was...
You're like, rhyme some words, stop preaching.
Kind of. Even as a kid, I could see that it was preachy. And that's... I say, it's a great message, all that, but it just never really did it for me as a kid.
You're like, there isn't even really a truffalo tree. Come on, man. Get it together, Seuss.
I speak for the trees.
But all of his stuff really did have a message underneath that you had to dig for. And the older you got, the more you got it. I mean, you can... as a 43-year-old guy, I read Oh, the Places We'll Go, and oh my gosh, it's still... I still get things out of that.
I get to read to the nieces now.
Yeah.
So we read Dr. Seuss stuff, and it's fun seeing, because I've said it before, they're 4 and 6. So it's fun seeing the discovery of Dr. Seuss through their eyes, which is just
Isn't that wonderful when you get to vicariously live through, like, because we never get to have that for the first time again. So the closest you get is to watch someone else have that for the first
and it's
time.
just- I remember the first time my mom read him Fox on Socks, and the oldest, her just... those eyes just lit up, and there was so much giggling that was happening, and it was just
That's
wonderful.
awesome. I had a student who, if the day ever comes that I spawn little Shawns, this is something I will do. Is she took Oh, the Places You'll Go, and from like kindergarten through, anytime she had a mentor or a teacher, she would get the book out and would have them write a message and Other
that's
Places
cool.
You'll Go.
Oh,
And
neat.
then on her 18th birthday, she's going to give her the book with like messages from all of her mentors through the years.
That's awesome.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
That's
very
really-
cool.
As someone who is going to become a dad in the next
know,
couple months.
I think that's what somebody might be doing.
I know. I feel like my gift to you will be I'll just buy you the blank book and
There
be
you
like,
go.
you know what to do with this. Oh, I think you know.
So let's talk some of the other things that we just really like about Seuss, and let's kind of stick with the books for now. We can get the movies and all that later, but the books. What is the things?
That's perfect because I don't like the movies. I'm kidding.
I like the cartoon movies. I don't like the live action.
Yeah, most of them aren't
But
very good.
But what is it you like about the books? And the first thing that always stands out to me is the Seuss font.
Yeah.
It is so recognizable and so cool. And honestly, I've always wanted to have that font on my computer. It's just, there's something that's just really whimsical and happy, but still structured, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
All the H's look exactly the same. They all look exactly the same, but it's just so whimsical at the same time, if that makes sense.
I love that because I would argue that if you pay attention, that the font also looks a lot like the landscape. You know what I mean? You can see those similar kind of
Curves.
lines
Yeah.
and curves in the way that he draws the trees and things. Like, how smart is that?
Yeah.
To consider the font part of the art, So that's really cool.
So what else do you guys pick up on the books themselves?
I feel like one of the things for me is the language. Like, it's doing so much with so little.
Yeah.
That's the thing that I love is that he can repeat the same 7 lines on this page and then add an 8th line to it, and then on the next page add a 9th line to it, and I'm never mad about it.
Yeah,
I'm like,
it's
yes,
Ground-
I'll read those tongue twisters
It's
7
Groundhog
times.
Day.
Yeah.
It's just different enough.
I love
and
it.
it's interesting to see too how you can keep such a simple base of something, but if you're just reading it, it may not be so much there, but the imagery of what he does it's like telling more of a story than you would just get from the verbiage and the words there.
There's a fun thing. I'm gonna throw this over to Geeky Page and get your thoughts on this as well. So Shakespeare, when Shakespeare didn't have a word that fit in the scansion,
one up?
he would make it up. He's like, I got how about betwixt? Let's just throw that in there, right? And invented over 5,000 words,
Yeah.
enough to constitute a language. And I feel like, and it was funny because as I was thinking about the thing to make the uncle joke, You know, I said the mighty galoof and the spotted trunkle. I needed a word that rhymed with uncle, so I just made one up. You know,
Yep.
and that's what he would do. Like, I just think it's great that it was easy for him to rhyme everything because I'll just make a new creature. And so I think that there is some genius on par with Shakespeare in what Seuss was doing.
There are 3 writers in history that I can think of who can do that: Shakespeare, Dr. Seuss, and Lewis Carroll.
Lewis Carroll. Mm-hmm.
And they just would make up a word, but the word they make up makes absolute sense.
Yeah.
Like when you're reading, like the Lorax has a ton of them in there, and the Lorax itself is a made up word, but it makes perfect sense in the context of what Seuss was doing.
Yeah. I know this isn't a Lewis Carroll episode, but same thing, like burble and gyre. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so like all those great
brillig and the slithy toes.
Yeah.
All
and
made up.
So same thing with just that idea of like, and then he imbues them with a life and a value so that we know what that creature is now, and we know what that means. You know, it's
and
awesome.
like it's almost as if, and Carroll does it as well, and it's almost if the word he has made up takes on the persona of what he's created.
Yeah.
So like I go back to the Lorax, but the Lorax, when you hear the word the Lorax and then you see the picture, you
immediately imagine that
almost
adorable little Wilford Brimley groundhog.
Yeah, and it's almost onomatopoeic in a way, because it's like you say the Lorax, but there he is too. So
yeah, and I also love the fact that until the movies, each of us had a unique idea of what that voice sounded like that came out of
Yeah.
you know? So,
But for me, the voice hasn't changed.
oh really?
Really,
That's
it
great.
did not
For
change
the
for the
Grinch,
movies.
I'd
The
say
Grinch, honestly,
Boris Karloff is
I
the man.
watched The Grinch before I read it, so that's probably pretty embedded.
Yeah, if you're gonna have an embedded voice, though, I mean that's the
you
one.
can't beat it.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really beat Boris Karloff.
I want my inner dialogue to be James Earl Jones all the time, anyway.
But going back to what you're saying about the making up words and all that, I think that, being that Seuss wrote the children's books, that really was responsible for our generation being as creative as it is, because it did make you create. It wasn't just follow the rules and do what your parents say and do your chores and take your vitamins. It was a world that you got to get sucked into as a kid, and it made you be more creative because he made these words up, so you had to figure it out.
Yeah,
and there was something about that I think that really did affect our whole generation.
And I think too, there's that. So you mentioned this when we were kind of chatting earlier about it's the first example of kids misbehaving. Yeah. And I love the fact that wasn't necessarily a bad thing. Like there's a part of me that I don't have kids, but I work a lot in education. I work at a teen treatment center, and one of the big things that I'm constantly arguing with is let them be kids.
Children need to be children.
Well,
there's a balance,
kids, like you gotta let them go climb that thing too. You have to.
Yep. And they're supposed to fall down, and they're supposed to hurt their knees, and they're supposed to do this because they're kids.
Yeah, this current generation needs to read more Seuss.
They're supposed to make a mess. Like we were in the backyard. I was in the backyard with the girls, and we were making the biggest mess in the entire world. And I'm sitting there going, "This is what they're supposed to do."
Yeah.
Like we were playing bubbles, and I probably went back into the house at the end covered in bubble junk because they're just the messiest little beasties when we play with it. But so my clothes are dirty and messy. Well, they were being kids.
Yeah,
Gotta let them do it.
there's Neil deGrasse Tyson talks about that with like seeing this mom with her kid, and there's a puddle, and they're walking up to the puddle, and he's like, please let the kid jump into the puddle, please let him, and the mom doesn't, and he's like, you just squashed curiosity. That's what you did. You just squashed letting the kid play with the idea of what does a downward force do to this puddle, and it's just really cool. And he's like, and if it makes our job a little harder to clean up after them a little bit more, then it makes our job a little harder, but you've got to let them be curious. And so, and I think that he was a champion of that, of this idea.
He also let them have
really
consequences too.
Yeah.
And that's
go on the adventure.
That's part of it. Go on the adventure, but there will be consequences for it. And it was never any dire consequences in the Suessiverse, but there was consequences. I thought that was really an interesting, take, and it was an interesting way of feeding a kid's mind. It made you be a kid. And that's unlike these other books that were not entertaining because they were, do your job or your parents will get mad at you.
Yeah, and I love the fact that he could appeal to the Myrtle the Turtle. I always think about that one, and there's a story that is appealing to kids, and there's a message that's appealing to adults when they're reading that as well.
I love Yertle the Turtle.
Yertle, thank you.
It's my favorite. That's why I'm gardening it.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you. Yertle the Turtle.
I love Yertle the Turtle.
Yeah, I used to have a Yertle the Turtle tie.
Nice.
Awesome. Yertle the Turtle and the
Did it have
bread,
weird? Did
the
it
bread
have
and
weird
butter
wavy
war.
lines?
Yeah, yes.
The bread and butter war is my other favorite.
Nice.
Okay, let me hit some of the history stuff that I pulled out from Dr. Seuss.
Stuff is cool.
Yeah, and you guys can add to it or correct me or whatever you want to do. His real name was Theodore Giselle. He was German American. His father left Germany before the rise of the Nazi Party, and he had very strong feelings about that. There's a lot of misnomers that. And I even thought they were until I started researching it, that there was some Nazism in his past and all that, and that was not true at all. Actually, he went the other way completely. He has sold more than 60 million copies of his books.
That's amazing.
Now, 60 million copies, that is Harry Potter will never hit the mark that Dr. Seuss has hit. It might, maybe in 20 years, but maybe. But I think most people that have bought Harry Potter, they're not buying them again.
It's like the longevity of those books compared to the longevity of Dr. Seuss's books.
I do feel like that's a little bit of apples and oranges, though.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
No, they're completely different. But as a children's author, no one has done more. Then that's kind of where I'm going with that.
Yeah.
What was the amount on it?
60 million copies.
Because I would definitely say that I think about 30 pages into a Dr. Seuss novel, I would be bored.
Oh, I don't think I could do that.
No, yeah.
The drawings that are in the Suessiverse were all his.
They're so fun.
Yeah, they are. That is. Mm-hmm. You didn't have to read to understand the characters.
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah, and how cool is that to get to be like enough of a polymath like that to go, not only am I going to create this universe, but I'm going to be able to show you exactly what I see in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's an amazing gift.
And I think that's another reason why they're so loved, is because that universe visually is just so much fun to be in.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's just...
You don't want to leave.
Who wouldn't want to hang out?
Mm-hmm. In the jungle of Newell.
Right.
Yeah.
Horton's awesome.
Nice. See, he initially took the Dr. Seuss name. He was the editor of his college paper at Dartmouth, and he got in trouble for drinking, so they pulled away his right to be the editor of his paper. So, and he wanted to still contribute, so he started calling himself Dr. Seuss, and that's where the name came from. Because he was a rebel, and you can see that in his writings later.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I remember watching with my nephews when they were younger, we watched an episode of Gumby, and the whole thing was about this little red ball that wasn't any good until it finally conformed and became like all the other blue. And I was like, okay, that's enough. Break out the Seuss. I will not have this.
No conformity!
I will not stand for this.
That sounds about right too. Mm-hmm. He worked with Stan Lee doing American propaganda films for World War II.
Stan the man.
Stan Lee.
Stan and Seuss.
So I wish I could get my hands on some of that. I couldn't even find it on YouTube where they did it together, but
bet you could find it.
I looked, but I didn't go too deep. I think that
I'll deep dive for you, baby.
I think someone's gonna do that for us. Just to see those two at really before they broke off and did what they became. Mm-hmm. That is just an interesting dynamic. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can you imagine being in that room with those two?
In the room where it happened. Oh, sorry. Hamilton joke.
He had a 225 hard word vocabulary. His books had 225 individual words. That's it. I'm not talking about the length of the books. I'm talking about the vocabulary. Those the allowed words, 225.
How cool is that? Like, the man, that's so cool. Because I imagine it's almost like setting out a paint palette. He's like, all right. He's like Bob Ross. All right, we're gonna run the words at the bottom of the stage, and these are the words I'm gonna use.
These are the happy words.
That's so cool. And then the fact that like, do you eliminate one of your 225 words by making up a word? You know what I mean? Like that's so cool.
How many of those words were made up?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
to be able to do that and to do it on purpose so that everyone could understand his work.
Yeah.
And even with 225 words, it is inexplicably deep, some of the messages that he was able to convey. But that also helps with being the artist as well, because he may have 225 words, but he had 10,000 words in the picture.
Yeah. And that was a great thought, Blaise. I would love to see if there's anyone who's done a percentage, like what percentage of the words were made up.
Yeah.
You know, that's so cool.
He had crippling anxiety whenever he talked to anybody. When he went to a party, he would talk to 2 people, and that's it. And then he was done. He didn't like talking to kids because kids made him nervous. He hated going on the whole speaking route. So he created a character for himself. And anytime you see any interviews or anything else, that is his character. That is not Robert Giselle. That is Dr. Seuss, the character he created. And that's the only way he could function.
Yeah.
Dr. Seuss is like my Patronus.
Well, it was his Patronus, literally.
Yeah, right? Yeah.
Before he died, he would not allow any licensing of anything. No toys, it was just the books. Now, unfortunately, the movies came after he died because his wife let it happen. She allowed she allowed the marketing and all the toys and everything else that we see. However, she took all the money anything that they made, all the licensing, and it goes to college scholarships and libraries. Every penny.
That's awesome.
That's so cool. That's so neat, because you could argue, like, if that is his legacy, is that no, it's just the books, that you could honor that. But instead she said, how can I make this live on forever, and how can he continue to do good for the
help
world?
people.
You know what I mean? Like, how cool is that?
Which is what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
I mean, he had some spotty past things. There was a
Don't we all?
There was a comic a cartoon that he made that came out, and it auctioned for a lot of money, and it was really racist, to say the least. However, if you kind of do the research on it, it was a political cartoon, and it was saying, no, this is a bad thing. These are people. They're not property.
Gotcha.
Now, but everybody wants to go up in arms. Oh, Seuss was a racist, and he was actually making a political cartoon on how it's bad. You got to look at context on things.
Yeah.
And I want to avoid that a little bit, but I think that needs to be said. He was not, as far as anyone knows, a racist. He was
Sure.
It was a political satire, kind of an important thing with everything he wrote. He didn't go too far political, except for maybe the Lorax.
Yeah. I don't know
But
that
I don't
call
think
that
it's even-
environmental.
I wouldn't even call
Yeah,
it.
it's
Yeah.
not
It's more
necessarily
it was
a
a-
political thing. It's more of just his stance on.
Yeah, it was
the
a
world.
stance.
Yeah.
But I think he did a really good job about being able to give a morality play without pushing it down your throat.
Yeah.
And that's every other book that he did. That's what I see, and that's what I love about it.
Yeah.
So, any other things that you guys dug up on Seuss?
If anybody's curious, it's kind of like a documentary, but it's not. It has a story at the same time, and it's called In Search of Dr. Seuss, and it's all about his life, but it's Kathy Najimy plays a reporter, and so it goes through the animations and it goes through his story, and so it's think like fairy tale theater-ish in a style, and it's really cool. They used to do it on PBS, and my mom would show it to her art class when she was
cool.
teaching, but I think you can get it on Amazon now, or probably YouTube, I would think.
Yeah.
Another thing that I didn't hit, his first wife, which is a pretty tragic story, so I don't want to really go into it because it'll depress people, but she helped to write a lot of most of the first 3/4 of the Dr. Seuss universe. There are definitely a lot of her words that are put in there that she doesn't get the credit I think that she deserved.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Cool. Good call.
yeah.
I mean, it's not cool that she didn't get the credit. I think
No,
it's cool
well,
that
I think they worked as a
Let's bring it
team,
up.
and they
Yeah.
knew they were a team. Then they didn't really care with the rest. Dr. Seuss was a character. That wasn't
Sure.
Robert Giselle. It was them together.
that's cool.
So, and I think that's kind of how they looked at it.
Yeah.
I think it's Geisel.
Geisel.
I think it's Geisel. And I'm only remembering it from that documentary.
I'm probably. I always butcher names, so
I could be wrong, but
I
I think
butchered the
it's-
names of the
yeah, I
people at
think
this table.
Theodore Geisel.
I'm Sean. Just
Mr. Beard, right?
that's right. That's right.
Yeah, Shane.
Come back, Shane.
I still think it cracks me up that I still occasionally get, because it's SEAN, the correct spelling, and people would go, they'll be like, Cian? I'm like, seriously? There's not enough Sean's in media for you to know, like,
Right.
Yeah.
Someone needs to read their Dr. Seuss and see how they made up words.
There you go.
The other one I love is people like, will at Starbucks will say, is it SH? And my answer is always, I'll answer to any spelling. So
Does it matter? It says it on the cup, and
I'll
I throw
answer
that
to any
away.
spelling. It's fine.
The Lorax would be very upset with what I'm going to do with this cup later.
That's right.
Okay, so let's move on to our listener feedback, actually.
And now, let's see what all of our geek rock stars have to say.
Okay, so for our listener feedback today, we asked what makes the works of Dr. Seuss so very memorable. Please expound upon why. Now, I didn't get this out till like the day before the show, so we didn't get a lot of feedback, so I apologize.
But everybody wrote why.
But people, double points for everybody who wrote why.
Yoo-hoo. Okay, guys, so here's the usual. Thank you for all your great feedback. We love it. I don't have to give the spiel about if you didn't put why, I'm not going to read it because you all put why, so I'm going to read everybody's. Yay!
Yay!
I should have done that Susian, but that was the best you get from me. Okay, so Desiree Houston says, I remember reading to learn... Let me try that, because I apparently didn't follow her advice. I remember learning to read with these as a kid. It always gave me an incredible feeling of accomplishment when I could finally get through one on my own. The rhymes were easy to remember, silly and fun. The pictures were simple, odd, and fascinating. My favorite was, and still is, one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish.
I thought
There
you
you
were
go,
the only
Wes.
one on that one, Blythe.
Nope.
Scott Skeen says his grasp of the absurdity of the world and the layers of the stories that reach multiple generations.
That's what we've been hitting on the whole time.
That's a good
That's
one.
what's important.
Kimberly Romaine says it's 100% imagination since everything about it is made up. Skeeter Thompson says they taught me how to read. It gave me a base for my public speaking and voiceovers. Excellent. TC says
The voice of the show.
his concise writing schemes coupled with his utterly nonpartisan and easily digestible stories made him a giant in the field. I truly believe that he had a sincere desire to brighten children's lives and their parents and perception with his stories. And our very own PB&Jason says his use of repeating words and phrases with slight variations and a steady building of the imaginary scope was his art form that no one did or will ever do better. And Tyler Romaine said, yeah, that.
Double points, Tyler. Yes, my son is now bringing out his old Dr. Seuss books so that we feel more Seussian.
You guys work, I'm going to read.
Now, before we get on to our main event, what I find kind of interesting is when our mentors really have that kind of Seussian moments that they can give us. I just heard a story that I just wanted to repeat it because it's just such a fantastic story. But it's this when your mentor can say something that it came from Dr. Seuss, but not. I think it's really a special moment when that's something that kind of can stick with you forever. So I wanted to actually hear that. So that was a great story that you told us.
Sure. So Fred Adams, founder of the Utah Shakespearean Festival, passed away recently, and I was at his funeral. I worked there for many, many years. I'm good friends with his son and his family, and have eaten dinner with Fred, and he was growing up. He was on a mission actually in Helsinki, and while they were there, he went on a hike, and it was at night, and it was freezing, literally freezing, like below zero, and he was miserable and complaining the whole way and did not want to be on the hike until one of the other people that was with him said, "Look up." And they looked up, and it was the first time that he had ever seen the Aurora Borealis. And he remembers that for the rest of his life. Whenever you feel down, whenever things are hard, his advice would always be look up.
I say that's a special moment. That's what's.
Thank you, Fred.
Thank you, Fred.
Yeah, thanks, Fred.
And my dad used to say something kind of Seussian to me. I mean, it wasn't quite as poetic, but he would always say, whenever I'd walk around in a funk, starting when I was a little kid, keep your head up. Only the beast looks down, and that's always made sense to me. And that was kind of one of those Seussian moments. You can't keep your head down all the time. You got to look up, see what's in front of you. Look ahead. If you keep looking down, you're not ever going to go anywhere.
Yeah.
Just one of
the
good moments.
places you'll go.
And we will be discussing that with our main event. So we are doing. Let's move on to our main event and get the music going.
Now it's time for the main event.
Okay, so for our main event, we're doing something a little different than normal. Instead of giving ourselves a top 5 or top 3 list, whatever, we're actually just going to hit 6 of kind of our favorite Seuss books, and we're going to kind of go through them one by one and kind of discuss what we like about them, so on and so forth. So if you guys want to be prepared, I'll give you the 6 ones we're going to do first. We're doing Horton Hears a Who, The Cat in the Hat, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, Green Eggs and Ham, The Lorax, and of course my personal favorite, Oh, the Places You Will Go. So let's start with Horton Hears a Who. What's our experience with Horton Hears a Who? What's the morality play?
Oh man!
Let's go with Sean first on this one.
I have such a warm. I have such a spot in my heart for the show because I played Horton in Seussical the musical years ago. So I love Horton. I love the fact that he is driven by what is right and will just unequivocally do what is right, and and even at sometimes, to great peril to himself, like, and the Maisie LeBird with the egg and sitting on the egg, and just the fact that he, the dust speck winds up in the field of poppies, and he says, all right, well, let's do this thing, and starts picking the poppies one by one. So I love everything about Horton. I just think he's wonderful.
So Horton was the elephant, correct?
Yes, Horton the elephant.
And he finds the dandelion with all the
We
the
are
whole
here,
world
we
in
are
it.
here, we are here.
Yep, the dust speck. Yeah, the world in the dust speck.
So what do you feel like was the morality play on that? What can people take out of this one?
Look out for the little guy.
A person's a person, no matter how small. Yeah. I think that wraps that.
Yeah.
I just think it's wonderful.
Look
And
out
I
for
also
the
think
guy.
it's the idea of I think there's also a message of what we take for granted, because everyone thinks that he's nuts through the whole thing, and it isn't until the end that they realize that he's not.
Yeah.
And so it's about our assumptions about people as well,
From what I understand, Snuffleupagus was originally based on Horton.
I could see that.
Really?
I could see that.
Yeah,
Hey, bird.
before they had to
Yeah, thinking
change
of
the
Snuffy.
character
Yeah.
because they were worried that kids would think that that they shouldn't speak up because people will think they're crazy or something like that.
That's when they had to make him visible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's
To the grown-ups.
But that's kind of the same story as Horton in a roundabout way. Now, for some reason I remember, I don't know if I'm correct on this because it's been a lot of years since I read this one, were the colors a little more muted in Horton, or was that just me remembering wrong?
That's you leaving your Dr. Seuss book out in the sun. No, I don't know. I would have to look at that. I don't know. That's interesting.
That's just something I remember
He
for
would
whatever
change
reason.
his palette for some reason on that.
I mean, and not necessarily, it wasn't like an extreme, but for some reason I remember them just not being as bright.
I would love to look and see
Could have been the grays in
if it was like maybe the jungle of Newell was less bright than the world that was on the dust speck.
Yeah, you know what? I think that might have been it.
That'd be fun to look at and see if there's some, because obviously there's a pretty clear message that's being sent if that's the case.
Nice.
How do we feel about the movie? Did you guys like the animated movie of Horton Hears a Who?
I tried.
Yeah.
I didn't even think I watched it. I think I was done. Because didn't it come out after that terrible Cat in the Hat?
Yes.
With-
Yeah, I think so. That was
and
when
I
they
think
were
I just said, "I'm
switching
done."
more to animation.
But
than
at least
they
it was
did to
animated.
live
The
action.
original,
Yeah.
the original cartoon, we're the Wickersham Brothers. Like that one was super fun.
Yeah, I think this is the most recent one, though.
But yeah,
This
not
is
the recent one. I wasn't crazy about.
They
but the
should
original
never make
was
them more
super
than
fun.
the 28-minute or 26-minute, whatever it is, with
Good
commercials.
for kids.
Yeah.
It should be 30 minutes and no longer.
You got to keep their
Yeah.
attention.
Do you feel like we're, maybe we're fogeying a bit? Or like,
No.
I know
you
I'm a
crazy
fogey.
kids with your technologies and your Right.
I honestly
We-
don't
Are
think
we
do
so.
that.
bogeying Blythe?
I
Blythe will
think
tell us
you I like the Dr. Seuss movies, even the Cat in the Hat. I know it's over the top and it's
Well, we'll hit that one next, but yeah.
and it's crazy, but I think it's they're good stories to be brought to another medium. And I think that overall the movies, even like you said, we're going to touch into these, and each one of these, I think almost all of these has some sort of film adaptation of them, and I enjoy most of them.
Yeah.
I just think it's a new way to tell these stories to another generation.
Okay, well, since we're hitting that, let's go to number 2, which is The Cat in the Hat. Now, before we get started on the book itself, the cat in the movie, the Mike Myers, felt creepy to me, and the same kind of creepy that I was like, before I could read, I'm like, well, I don't know, is the cat a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Is he just gonna make these kids' life hell? What's going on? And that was what was going through my mind as a kid. And that's the same feeling I get from the Mike Myers without the benefit of the words to go with it and the story to go with it. That was my issue with that. I thought it was too ambiguous, I guess would be a good way of saying the cat. I didn't love the cat, if that makes sense. But
Yeah.
that's
Interesting. I love that. Just that take on it made, everything comes back to archetypal characters, right?
Yeah.
Like, and the archetypal journeys and I don't know why it's so obvious, but I never realized that the Cat in the Hat was the trickster spirit. He's
Yeah.
he's the
you know,
Loki.
He's Loki. He's Coyote. That's really cool. And that, that it's not without purpose. Like there's a lesson in what I'm doing, of course, take the long way,
Yeah.
So yeah, that's cool.
I think in the movie they did a good job of making him that character of being the trickster, but you have those moments where you can tell he cares about the kids, that he's there to teach them a lesson. And I think the problem with it that a lot of people have is that I feel like they cast Mike Myers for that role right off of
Shrek.
Not
No, it was
Shrek,
right off of the Grinch.
Austin Powers.
Well, the Grinch came out. They had the success from the Grinch, so they were looking for somebody who could be like Jim Carrey was to the Grinch, and they went with Mike Myers because Mike Myers was really popular at the time. He just doesn't have the same comedic timing and ability to
I just
made
don't
out
think
of rubber.
He's
like
that.
Jim Carrey was.
He's just not that character.
He wasn't.
No.
And,
Yeah.
he tried.
Yes.
And you could tell he tried. And I say that's when you can tell someone's trying, it's not a good performance.
Yeah. So I think that was definitely the lower part of it. But as far as the world and the adaptation, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I think too that when I was saying we were fogeying, I was thinking about that, and I do think that I do agree that we're adopting a book that is minimal pages into a screenplay that's 2 hours. But I think there's also something to be said for the fact that we live in a time where attention spans, like the data's in, attention spans are shortening.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden, Dr. Seuss, that type of world, that type of
Which is
material
perfect.
can still hold a kid's attention for 2 hours. Like even if it's just, even if it's just based on, and we're going to launch from there, the fact that his universe can still grab a kid's attention and hold it for 2 hours is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So there's something to be said for the movies there too.
My problem with the Cat in the Hat, and in general, and I'm taking the Grinch, I'm taking all the old cartoons out. I'm taking the Grinch with Jim Carrey out because I think that was successful. I think his stuff is hard to adapt to a screen. You'd think it would be easy because
To big
it's-
screen.
to big screen,
Not to small
It's
screen.
not when you do it, but I think that's why sometimes the movies are not successful because they're hard to. His work doesn't translate well because of the simplicity of it, possibly.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
I
you
think the
lose
last
something.
successful one that they had was Jim Carrey's The Grinch, and it was literally just him
Being the
Which
Grinch.
we'll hit that in a
being
minute, yeah.
Boris Karloff in The Grinch.
Yeah.
And, they only expanded on the world a little bit to give The Grinch more backstory.
See, and I think that because I don't think that it's this is kind of hard to say because it's kind of what Sean was saying about taking those small stories and putting them in a 2-hour film and them still being able to catch the attention of kids. I think that for that reason they're not successful, because they're not made for, they try and do things to put things in there that adults will enjoy, but I've known plenty of friends who have kids and they say that Horton Hears a Who or Cat in the Hat and those movies, the ones that you don't like, they're watching them over and over and over again because they still enjoy them as children, because they're children's stories, which also may not make them as successful because kids aren't buying movie tickets.
I don't know if I'd show the Cat in the Hat to kids.
My kids didn't like them, those.
Oh, I've had
movies.
I've had plenty of friends.
I'm
who
just
said
saying
that
my
Cat in the
kids.
Hat,
Yeah.
They haven't. However, I will say this: the half-hour series they have on PBS, that's the Cat in the Hat, which they really just do go through the whole Seuss universe
Yeah.
with the cat. Those are very well done. They're very brilliant. But I think that when you cut over that half-hour segment, it's not Seuss anymore. Now it is the writers of Game of Thrones writing their own thing so that they can put their stamp on it.
That's so interesting too, because it comes back to the thing we were talking about earlier with like Lewis Carroll and that type of world. I think that one of the reasons that Alice in Wonderland always in every iteration struggles to be successful, including the Disney one. You know, I mean, we love it and it's a classic, but it's not one of the more successful ones, is because that story was episodic.
Yep.
And so now all of a sudden we're trying to do this huge arc over something that's a series of vignettes. You know what I mean? And so you can never find a through line, and your audience loses interest because it's supposed to be episodic. It's supposed to be chapter based.
They shouldn't make movies out of it.
And so
Well,
the fact that what they're doing with that is turning it into chapters by turning it into a TV series is brilliant.
Yep.
You get your bite size, and then you want to come back for more.
And the
But,
best Alice in Wonderland I ever saw was a miniseries back in the 80s. And it was
Was it
spread out over...
Through the Looking Glass?
I think so. It had like Carol Channing as the White Queen, and but it was spread out over a series of... Like, what would be a short form series now, so maybe 10, 12 episodes. They used to call them miniseries back in the day. But yeah, I think if they did something like that with Dr. Seuss, it might.
Yeah.
It
No,
might work
as I say, I
too.
recommend checking out the PBS series. It is running now. It's
Yeah.
The girls like it.
It'd be fun to do something where, like, you know, our main characters are, each episode is they wind up thrust into as a protagonist into each of the different books or something like that, so that we get it.
It's the
in
Incredible
bite-sized
Hulk
chunks.
theory.
Yeah.
You know, every week it's a little. It's a different adventure but you have that
And that format works,
familiar
you know?
character.
Yeah.
Every time we know that there's gonna be some strange disease that House is gonna have to
Has
try to
to
figure out
fix.
what it is.
And it's different
you know?
people every time, and he's gonna do it.
You know,
Yep.
but yeah. So
But yeah, that'd
be fun. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's try our number 3, which will be How the Grinch Stole Christmas, which is my true love affair with Dr. Seuss.
Yeah.
I liked the movie with Jim Carrey. I didn't love it.
Me
I
too.
liked it. I went overboard on some parts. The animated movie is a staple of every single Christmas I will have till the day I die. So well done. And the book itself is, I mean, try not reading in Boris Karloff's voice. You can't.
Yeah.
Right.
I think one of its greatest contributions was to lazy dads across the country, because now there's that thing of having the one string of lights down to the Grinch, stuffing it into the bag as their Christmas lights. It's
Yeah.
so brilliant. But kidding aside, I think that I love it because it's that story that goes across time. So when we do the Christmas version at Tournament, you know, in the end, the way that they defeat the kingdom is we give Mordred a gift. You know,
Let me know when you do that, because I want to bring the girls. They loved it the
Okay.
first time, but now let's see a little different one.
Yeah, definitely.
They're scared of Brandon.
As he walks out, whenever I play Master of the Lease, as I watched it under my breath, I would always go, and Mordred's heart grew 3 sizes. You know? So, yeah.
But that story is part of our psychology as
Yeah.
you know, Americans, Canadians. I mean, I don't know about, you know, European countries so much, but I know that on North America, it's definitely a part of our psychology every year. Jewish or Christian or whatever, there's something about the Grinch that just
You name the catalog of movies that you got to watch around Christmas time, and that makes the
Boomerang.
top
Die
5.
Hard
you
and
know?
that, yeah.
Yeah, you know,
A
Die
Christmas
Hard.
Story.
Die Hard. It's a Wonderful Life.
He's a
Christmas
more
Story.
likable Ebenezer Scrooge, is what he is.
That's great.
He
Yeah.
really is.
The
And they
Grinch
made him
is just a
so
more likable Ebenezer
scary
Scrooge.
but approachable.
Yeah.
And I mean,
he's
that is
fluffy.
such a hard line.
Well, and I mean that's what's great about the Jim Carrey movies. Like he's trying.
They
to
didn't give him the sympathy
They're
in the
trying to
books.
scare her. He's trying to scare Cindy Lou, and she comes and she just starts laughing because she's like,
He's ridiculous.
"Funny,
yeah.
you're funny."
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah,
That's great.
they made him approachable, which is good.
So that's the one that I think they got right. I don't think that anybody else could have played it though.
No, I think Jim Carrey was probably the only
Yeah.
one that could take up. That's why I don't think the new animated version with Benedict Cumberbatch
It wasn't very good.
I
it
don't
didn't
think
do
I didn't
very
see it.
well.
It wasn't. It just they tried to. So they marketed it as like an origin story,
Yeah.
to where like you kind of see where he came from, but then they like kind of did that at the beginning, but then they rolled it into the normal story.
Regular story.
So it was very confusing as to what it was, because it was like I came here to kind of see an origin story, kind of like a new telling of it.
Yeah.
But then I just got the just normal.
the
But
Grinch
you know,
story.
as you know from sitting at this table for long enough, nobody wants a new story either.
We kind of get an origin story in the Jim Carrey.
Yeah, the Jim
version.
Carrey gave us, I think, all the origin story we'll ever need.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
why he became
Why he became what he
Yeah,
was.
and
That's
I'm
funny
not-
though, because origin stories we do kind of like. That was the
Yeah.
success of Wicked. There was
Yeah.
that book Grendel.
I'm not
Yeah.
opposed to a new story with older characters or older franchise.
Well,
it has
we
to be
probably don't
done
want to watch
right.
Grinch the Next Generation.
Yeah, I
No.
just not. Yeah, it has to be done right. Any kind of story in any medium with any kind of characters, it needs to be done right, and they just missed the.
Mark.
Yeah.
Nice. Okay, let's move on to a book that was not made into a movie at all. I don't know if this is even a TV show.
It was
Green Eggs and Ham.
actually Netflix
It's a
just released
cartoon,
it.
I think.
Oh,
yeah.
really? Okay, I didn't see it.
Season 1 of Green Eggs and Ham was in November, I believe.
How is it?
on Netflix? I haven't watched it. I saw the trailers for it, and I saw like how they put the thing at the top where
Yeah.
I saw all that, and I wanted to watch it. I just never got around to it. So
My kids have aged out of that stuff a lot, so
Yeah.
I don't get
Yeah.
it. I'm not
I've-
first on the list. But now, whenever you think of Seuss rhymes and the just kind of the way he structures conversation, that's which one you think of before you think of any of the other ones. I think.
yeah.
Will not eat them on a boat.
Yep.
I will not eat them in my coat.
Now, which one? Something that always sticks to my mind on Green Eggs and Ham is, remember the show Moonlighting?
Yeah.
Okay, Bruce Willis was having a conversation with somebody, and they were basically doing the whole Green Eggs and Ham. There's like, and then someone comes up, "How do you do that?" He goes, "It's a lifetime of reading Dr. Seuss," and that to me always stuck with me. I'm like, oh, and that's when I guess appreciated Green Eggs and Ham a lot more. You know, it's the whole morality story about try things that don't seem very good. Maybe you'll like them.
Yeah. That's my awesome mom. I have a wonderful story about my awesome mother who, when I was little, I became obsessed with the fact that I wanted to try green eggs and ham.
I think we
Like,
all
it
probably
needed
did.
to be a thing. And so my mom did the scrambled eggs with the green food coloring and got me.
Did
and
you
I
like
had-
Green Eggs and Ham?
I did. They tasted just like normal eggs and ham.
In the documentary that I was talking about, she actually tries it, and it's literally, I don't know what they did for the egg whites, but the yolk is just green Jello in the shape of an egg yolk, because you can see it when she picks it up with her fork, because it starts to jiggle like Jello.
That's awesome.
So no more thoughts on Green Eggs and Ham? Then let's move on to the Lorax. Now, this is the one I probably paid the least attention to, because as a kid I didn't like it for whatever reason. So I know you guys loved it. So
Yes.
let's hear about the Lorax.
I am the Lorax. I speak for the trees. So, I mean, obviously, anyone that knows anything about me knows that the two things that I identify as the most, one is as a entertainer, director, performer, and the other is as a wilderness guy. You know, like I am a primitive skills and wilderness survival. I hate saying expert, but I suppose an expert.
You know more than
And,
most. How's that?
Yeah.
Pretty darn close. How's that feel?
Yeah,
that
yeah.
better?
It's weird. I hate claiming expertise. It's bizarre. It's a thing. It's a quirk of mine. But And so just a lot of the mentality that we have in the woods is this idea of like, take only pictures, leave only footprints. But I don't believe that that's the case either. I think that we need to learn to interface with the woods. And I think that we need to learn how to have a caretakership. And so the woods is my happy place. That's where I go to heal. That's where I go to
You
think.
are the Lorax.
Yeah, I'll take it. That's my happy place. And so that book is very meaningful to me because I feel like, that's occurring. The Lorax is taking place in the rainforest right now, So.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I just think when I was old enough to understand it, I liked the idea of somebody little fighting against somebody big who was trying to destroy something.
Yeah, the underdog.
Yeah, it was the underdog story. And then as I got older, I understood the environmental impact of it. And it really spoke to me because here was this tiny little creature who was like, nope, we need those. We require those. Quit using them all up. And it was just wonderful.
Nice.
Yeah.
Another one that I enjoy. I don't know if you enjoyed the movie version of it, but I enjoyed the movie version of it.
I
as
haven't
well.
seen the movie version of it.
I,
I've never gotten around to watching it.
I think they've taken a step back from live action stuff and they're doing more animation.
I've seen
It's a good
I've seen
CGI.
the
It's
old
not the...
cartoon
Yeah.
version of it, the 70s cartoon version of it,
No,
but
this
not the
one's
newest
like
one.
I can't remember. I
I
think
think Danny DeVito is the voice.
yeah,
of
Danny
Lorax?
DeVito's the
Yeah.
voice, and it's like the Pixar
style.
style
Yeah.
of animation.
Upon your recommendation, I will watch it. I actually have not because
I'd like
I
to hear your
love
thoughts on it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I love that story so much that I was afraid. I was just
Yeah,
like, I can't
I never
bring
got
myself
around
to,
to it.
to start it.
It's hard. It's the whole conversation of is the book better or is the film better, and sometimes it's just really hard to capture that same magic in film. I enjoyed this version of it, and I like Danny DeVito.
Nice.
Like
I mean,
Danny
there's
DeVito.
always something to be said too for the fact that is an inroad to the kids reading the books.
Yeah.
A kid who's
Yeah.
on the fence sees a couple movies and then wants to read the books.
Yeah,
So,
what's it about?
For sure.
Nice.
yeah.
Okay, now let's talk about the final one, which is honestly one of the two books that, as a child, made an impact on me that still sticks today, and that is "Oh, the Places We Will Go." Just so well written, and that this was, and it takes a lot when you realize that's the last thing that Seuss wrote. Didn't do anything after that. I think he died very shortly after that.
How
That-
appropriate, too.
That was his love letter.
Yeah.
That was his love letter to the
Yeah.
kids that grew up reading his books, I think. But I got it doesn't really have much to do with the story, but my favorite post pop culture reference to this is on The Office when Michael Scott, he's losing his intern because he's going up to be got a promotion. So he said, well, I wanted to get him, he's going up there, I wanted to give him a gift. He goes, well, what gift you get him? The places you will go. And then he looked down and it was one fish, two fish, red fish, blue fish. He goes, but they were out of that one, so I got him this one. They're all the same, right?
Nice.
That's awesome.
But
But
nice.
the thought behind him getting that book is, the places you'll go. Take the time, enjoy the time. Don't just sit there waiting for the next thing. Go do what your next thing is.
And at a man at the end of his journey looking back and saying, life is a journey, like that's, don't
do
forget, and you've got your whole life ahead of you, so
Yeah.
make something of it. That's
Yeah.
really great.
This is the movie I want them to make. That I don't know if they will.
Yeah.
I will watch a 2-hour the places you will go. Well, because that's every old man telling a story ever made.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the seven stages of man, and you know what I mean. Again,
And
that
it
archetypal
really hits
idea.
it all,
Yeah.
It hurts,
Yep.
hits, birth to death.
There's more Shakespeare for you.
Yep, absolutely.
Yep.
Man, so what we've concluded is that Shakespeare, the world is split evenly between Dr. Seuss and Shakespeare.
And Lewis Carroll.
And a little bit for Lewis Carroll.
That's right.
Let's add him
That's
in
right.
there because we always need to go beyond the looking glass.
That's right.
Outstanding. That was a show, and I think I'm going to, after we close the show up, I'm just going to stay in my little Seuss world for a little while.
Do it. Do it.
So, yes, to stick around till the end, because we got two things that are coming for you. First off, You want to listen to the music because that's going to tell you where to get a hold of us all. And then Sean might be reciting something for us as soon as we finish our little tagline. So until next time, I'm Dub.
I'm Miss Geeky Page.
I'm Blythe.
I'm Sean and his magical beard.
Keep on geeking on.
I'd have no more troubles. That's what the men said. So I started to go. But I didn't. Instead, I did some quick thinking inside of my head. Then I started back home to the Valley of Vung. I know I'll have troubles. I'll maybe get stung. I'll always have troubles. I maybe get bit by that green-headed quail on the place where I sit. But I've got a big bat. I'm all ready, you see. Now my troubles are going to have troubles with me.
Such a great line.
Nice.
You have been listening to the latest episode of the iHeart Geek Show. Make sure you visit our website at www.iheartgeekshow.com. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And if you check us out on YouTube, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And keep on geeking on to all of you geek rock stars.